let's go ahead and get started here. Oops. Okay, some of you were in the last session and probably saw this quote. It's one that I really like to use because it applies to so many different things. Making the simple complicated is commonplace. Making the complicated simple, awesomely simple, that's creativity. So I think we do an awful lot of that in higher ed. You know, we task force everything to death. You know, we have a task force, they come up with a decision, we have a task force to work on that decision, and then so on and so forth. When it comes to working with students, there are so many simple things we can do to help them. It isn't complicated, yet sometimes we make it that way. All right, how am I gonna do this? Okay. There we go. So, I love this quote. If you want to go quickly, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. I think that, again, applies to our students and to us working with our students and all of us collectively working with our students. That's why it is so important that there is collaboration across the campus as we deal with student issues. So, what is advising? Jane got a few answers this morning in the large group session. Somebody here give me an answer. What is advising? Consulting, okay?
One thing that wasn't mentioned this morning, I thought it was directional. In other words, where are you going and how do you want to get there?
Okay, directional. Where are you going? How are you going to get there? I like that.
It's a component of counseling because you're trying to give them the tools necessary in order to basically take the courses that they need in order to graduate. So you're actually counseling.
Okay.
Students.
Yep.
To work off of hers, it's almost a roadmap.
A roadmap. All right. Lots of good answers. Anybody else?
I also use it as a pep talk time
Pep talk time?
and help them.
I like that.
You can do this, particularly for my students I've had a while. You really can do this.
You can do this. Yep. So lots of good answers. What is advising not?
Oh, making decisions for them, I guess.
Okay. Making decisions for them. What else?
I don't want to come across as that I know absolutely what's best for them. I want it to be a working dialogue and relationship, and I want to use my expertise, present it to them, and then what do you think about
What do you
this?
think? Right. So it's my way or the highway. It's here's some thoughts. Yeah, some options. What do you think? Anybody else? What is it not?
I try not to make it depressing for them.
I like that. No,
Well, I have some students sometimes that I'm giving the students that want to be a pharmacist instead of a technician, and they really don't know what they're getting into. But I tell them just to take the short view. What do you have to take this semester or this year? Don't look at it 8 years out, or it'll become overwhelming. You need to, here it is, and this is what you need to take, so you need to pass these so you can get to the next step. So don't try to make it overwhelming or depressing. Just right.
One step at a time.
But informative. They need to know that what is going to be expected of them, so that they do it correctly. It's you got to make A's or B's, and particularly half A's, and you've got to, and so it's like some of these harder programs to get into here.
All right. Anybody else?
How about it's not without limitations and boundaries? You cannot come the last hour of the last day of registration and you want to take 3 courses and you can only, you work and you, whatever else happens in your life, and you can only take classes between 9 and 11 on Tuesday, Thursday.
Lot of and conditions.
Yes,
Yes.
and I want this instructor, and it's the
Right.
last hour of registration.
And
So it has its boundaries,
Right.
limitations,
Unrealistic expectations. Yep, absolutely. And that gets back to the whole thing about it's really that, because that then turns it into strictly not even registration. It turns it into, this is desperation. This is all we can do for you. It's very stressful for everybody.
But at that same point, you can kind of, you can make it realistic, but you can also give them pointers on how to make their life easier next semester. That's what I try to do.
and you
Okay.
can laugh and smile.
And then you hand them your card and say, okay, write it on the back. You need to see me the first week in April.
Right.
Don't wait till.
Or before that. Don't wait till the last
That's what
minute,
you
right?
do.
Yeah. So, college is more than a collection of courses or a ticket to a trade. A lot of our students don't understand that, do they? They think I'm going to come and I'm going to take 30 credits, I'm going to have a diploma, and or a certificate, a 1-year certificate, and I'm going to get out there and I'm going to have the world by the tail, right? They don't stop to look at how it impacts a lot of other things that are going on. We just talked about their goals. Somebody said unrealistic expectations. How do we get them to have those realistic expectations? How do they explore their life goals? We talked about that in the last session. And their career goals. They come in, somebody says to them, well, they come in at the last minute, this is what's left, this is what you're going to take. And if we don't say to them, but here are some other options, and don't wait till the last minute next time, they may never even think to look beyond what we gave them. And what do we always say? As I said earlier, last in, first out. Unless we do what you're talking about and take them by the hand and say, hey, yes, this is what we have to do this time, but here's what we can do in the future.
That's almost, a lot of these students that we get are not, they've been through a lot of hard knocks already. Or they would have been in a different place in their life. But they understand the school of hard knocks. So it's kind of like, I have a teenage son right now, and I'm letting him have to make a few small mistakes. So that
Right.
he can pay attention to mama when she says X, Y, Z. And my students are the same way. I've had some graduates, one that called me this semester over Christmas break and said, Miss Mundy, I have an awesome job opportunity. I gave them my resume. I already sent them my resume and my application. But would you look over my resume? She knew enough to call me. She had sent her resume that she was supposed to use while she was in school, stating that she had not graduated. Her grammar was horrible. She had sort of doctored it up. It was absolutely, I was embarrassed that she was from Bipsy. So I reworked it and sent it back to her, and I hope she gets the job. I was just like, oh my gosh. How could you send that resume? You knew better than that. You would just.
But that's a mistake that she won't repeat, I bet, if she doesn't even get an interview,
That's what-
I bet.
She got the interview.
Oh,
but
she
I
did?
told her
Okay.
that, because I said, just send him a short letter and attach it that says, I've had some new developments in my career.
Since yesterday when I sent the first one.
Well, she passed her national exam and everything in the month or two since she'd written that previous one. Oh, it was.
Oh, we have to hope they overlooked the poor grammar.
Why did I graduate her?
use basic grammar, what does that say about our
She's
standards?
she's a certificate, so she's a.
No, but I mean, we do have some, because I get them in
Right.
class, and I've taught junior high 20 years, and they can't write a single sentence, and yes, they pass English.
I know, I don't know the answer to that. We talked about that in the last group, and, you know, because we get students in our classes, they were talking about standards in classes, and how do you balance those students who are doing well and are going and are grasping the material, going to get good grades, with those
that aren't.
that aren't. And you know what? This is college level, right? So it should be. I mean, we're a college, and so we really should be. These are our standards. And if you're not cutting the mustard, then you need to go back to remedial, or unfortunately, you always hate to say this to a student, but maybe this isn't for you right now. Not to say you're not going to come back and do better at some point, but right now, these are our standards. This is what it takes to get an A, B, or C. And that's the way it is. And that's the school of hard knocks as well. I mean, we can't cater to everybody who walks in, and that's why we have the remedial courses, right?
But we are.
Yeah, I know.
Retention because of money. It's an
I know.
economic development tool for employees, and until the public and everybody really sees what we're putting out there for people to graduate. If we really tested them on a national standard, they did away with exit test and all that sort of, I've been teaching 40 years. We're not graduating college graduates. They're not doing college material because they can't pass my junior high test I got a few years ago. So.
Yeah, and I wish I,
I'm a taxpayer, and it really irks me that taxpayer money is wasted on students that don't want to learn, that it's here to.
is it that they don't want, or they can't, or they don't know how? Some of them don't. I understand that. Some of them don't.
Some of them have told me they're here for the.
Financial aid, yeah. And I understand that. But there are some who don't understand how to learn, and some who just can't at that level. And those are the ones that we need to help understand that right now, you know, you either need to be at this level or maybe not here at all.
I teach in a program, so you graduate a group of students that can do a certain skill. But what I've started doing is, to see the developing skills up there, I say, no, we must use proper English in this class. Absolutely, you know, we've already gone to the emails, you know, no emails with the you and all of that.
Right.
Because we're trying to teach them how to be good employees, but I said, none of the, no slang, no, you know, because y'all need to practice, because you're not using it at home. You need to practice the King's English here.
Yeah, exactly,
Or
yeah.
the Southern King's English.
The Southern King's English, right. You got a comment?
I teach math.
Yeah. I just throw my hands.
Elks that I assign to students in a semester, I'd say 10% or less are related to CANT. I think the rest of them are related to people that for one reason or another are not prepared. And we
Right.
have a mechanism at this institution. We offer count them, three remedial courses. The first of our remedial courses is elementary school math. They can start anywhere they need to start. And I had one student in Cal 3, not this past semester, but last spring, that started at the very bottom and
Right.
moved up. It's not that they can't do it, it's that many of them
Don't want.
have so much of lifestyle issues and problems. Mothers, a single mother with 2 children working 2 jobs,
Right.
and quote, I love this one, having to take 12 hours.
Yeah.
And students that could do well if they could focus on the classes and not on a myriad of problems.
Right.
And then students that have no self-discipline or
Right.
clues of what it means to keep up with you going along. We're an open enrollment institution. We take all comers. And our curriculum is designed to do just that. And we have many, many success stories of
Right.
students that started at the bottom and did what I described to you a minute
Right,
ago.
right, and that's why those classes are there.
But I also assign far too many Fs in a semester. And it's not because a student absolutely could not do it. We don't
Right.
teach rocket science stuff here.
Right.
We teach Cal 1, 2, 3, 4 and differential equations, and those are some hard courses. But 1/10 of 1% of the students would ever even think about that, much less take it. We're talking about a college algebra course, so a student can meet the basic requirements of the state of Louisiana to get a degree in something.
Right,
And they're just not ready, and they have so much
yeah, it-
background noise in what they're doing.
Right.
That it's not about skills. Our institution focuses and spends a lot of money to do remediation and to help them to be prepared. And we do a good job of that. But the problem is,
the outside,
the bigger is preparing
Bigger picture.
them, and I don't know the answer to that.
I don't either. It's a nationwide problem, and I don't know how we talked in the last group about changing the culture. If only our students didn't have to work, if they could come and be full-time students and not concentrate.
Financial aid was supposed to help them be.
Right, but it doesn't, so,
And I enjoyed learning. When I was a student, I want to see in my students, they should enjoy learning. But they just don't have, they're not into it because of, I like that word, background noises.
Can I say something too, expound on
They have a lot of lifestyle.
on your comments, because I
Yeah.
thought your comments were great. There's one other thing too that I've noticed in this one class that I teach. It's a prerequisite required before they can apply for nursing clinicals. So all these students, hundreds of students that are coming through, they have to take this. And it's a lab, A&P2 lab. And in this lab, one of the objectives of this lab is problem solving. And, oh yeah, and critical thinking and problem solving. They get
Right.
case studies. And you know what they tell me? And I get, this past semester, in some of my classes, I had 30 to 40% drop rate. And they said, well, why should we have to do that? And I said, well, when you get out and you're a nurse, I want you to be able to solve my medical dilemma. I'm coming in the emergency room. If you can't do critical thinking and problem solving, that's part of this job. And so not only do they have all this other
Right.
things going around, but I don't think they've been trained to do this.
and, yeah, they haven't. And that's why as advisors, we really need to help them with that. And so we can't make decisions for them, like you said earlier. We have to help them through that process. Unfortunately, many of them have absolutely no skills in that area. So it's something that really, again, you're starting at a remedial level, trying to help them think through things because they've just either never had to do it or chose not to do it.
Also, I think it's self-esteem. I get the students that didn't make PTA, OTA, respiratory nursing. Okay, they didn't get into the $25, $20, $40 an hour jobs. Okay, they're gonna get into the 10 to 15 hour jobs. So they've always been told you can't. You're not capable. We don't know what's wrong with you. Why can't you learn this? So I have to spend an entire semester getting their confidence up and telling them, you can do this. You can do this. I do have a pretty good attrition rate. I would say 30, 35, maybe sometimes 40. But that on the other end gives me 50, 60, 70% that
To
are,
work
that
with.
have, that get that ability. And then when they're done, I tell them, now you can do anything you want with your life. You have made it. You can do this. I am so proud of you. And I tell them over and over and over all semester, when they even just make a little bit of something, how proud I am of them.
And
you
that's
would
what they've
not
needed to
believe-
hear.
Oh, they need
That's
to
right.
hear it so badly. And last semester, I had 3, maybe 4 that came back to redo this really hard course because I had, and for a 10 to 15 hour an hour job, because they like the strokes that you're giving them. They
Right.
like to hear the positive.
Right.
It's like that.
You had a comment?
It's like
Oh.
that cartoon that I showed this morning, do you remember that? Where, there was a fish, an elephant, a monkey, and.
Oh,
Right.
yeah.
All their life they've been told they're stupid because
Yeah.
they're climate trees.
And
That's exactly.
Yeah.
we need more people like you, and I'm sure there are lots on this
There's
campus.
a whole campus full of
Right, there are, and that's, but it's unfortunate that they're not hearing it till they get here. You had a
They
comment?
love Bipsy.
And a lot of the students, as far as higher order thinking, they're not interested in thinking beyond whatever it is that you tell them. If it's something that you assign to them, be it a group activity or something like that, they just don't think that they should have to think about it. Everything is instant, like an instant microwave, and we're supposed to try to teach them about critical thinking, but they should have some of these skills before they get here, and they don't, so you have to try to
Right.
embed that in your learning so that they can think critically how to solve a problem.
Right,
We have to walk a fine line when a student walks in and says, sit down, and I've never seen this student before. I get out there, what they've taken, their classes that they want to talk about, what they want to take, what is your major, what are your goals and everything. I want to be a doctor. Okay. I look over here. We didn't pass Math 99. We had trouble with reading 99. Okay, so I've got to keep this straight face. You know what I'm saying? Is anybody here, right here? And you have to say, why don't we look at some other options? No, my mother wants me to be a nurse, and I'm gonna be a nurse. Sometimes,
I know, how do you burst their bubble? And,
yes.
There you go.
yeah, put them in the pharmacy tech program.
I'm gonna take you to Miss Monday's office.
So,
She's next door.
so,
Send me your masses, but I'll cut them in half.
Lots
So.
of nurses and pharmacists that on the skill needs,
Oh.
yet they pass, so.
so how many of you
I don't.
heard heard Jane's talk earlier about advising is teaching?
The engineering is so critical thinking. Oh my gosh, I can't imagine.
So anyway, advising and teaching, there are a lot of similarities between the two. So if that's the case, advising and teaching, why is collaboration between faculty and professional advisors important? So if you look at what Mara Reynolds had to say, what parts of those you think are more something that we would approach as a professional advisor or a faculty advisor, or should we all be talking about those things? Connections with the institutional mission is an example. Are your students introduced to that at all? Is there any course that's embedded in?
We're here to get you a job. We want you to be a good citizen. We want you to be educated. We want you to be productive. We want you to be proud. We want you to have
Right.
a lot of things to give to your family. And I always tell them what you do is going to impact at least 2 generations, if not 3. Because what your grandma did or is taking care of you is exactly impacting you. So what you are going to be somebody's grandma. So as a
Right.
mission of our institution, I tell them, we are here to better your life.
To better your, well, that's a very short, simple, and true statement.
It used to be it's all about you, but has that changed? It's changed.
Yeah. What about the connections with general ed? Whose responsibility is that, and is that important?
Yes, because that makes you a well-rounded person, and I do tell my advisees that. You know, I don't think any course is wasted. But let's hope it's not.
Let's hope it's not,
That's
exactly.
where the critical thinking comes in. They
Right.
get it from the general ed, and then we just take what they've learned and expound upon it in a
Yes.
specific situation.
Right, so should that be something, again, that is just institutionally promoted? You know, should faculty advisors promote that as part of a broader curriculum? You know, when a student asks, okay, now these are my program classes. I don't know how many credits of gen ed you take here, but you know, let's say you take 27 or whatever. So you've got 33. What's an associate degree here? How many credits? 60? Okay, so you got 27 gen ed, maybe in 33 program or core courses. Not that many courses, that many credits, course hours or whatever. So what do you say when they say to you, well, I don't need to take that psychology class. I'm just going to take these 33 credits of core and I'm going to be out of here because that's going to get me a job.
I just tell them you cannot graduate. It's a water graduate's requirement. not
It is, but
you.
why is it important? You know, that's the part that I think our students, some of them don't care if they graduate. You know, that's the whole thing. They come and they take what they think is going to get them the job.
Well, I take our prereqs and when we're going through and discussing things, I say, okay, now remember your anatomy, remember your med term, remember your, your dosage calculations.
Right.
And it sort of dawns on them finally that they're taking all of these things
That there's
and
a
putting
link.
it together.
like
Okay, I need you
building
to
blocks.
write me
Right.
a paper on a drug. I need you to use correct grammar.
Good idea, yeah. He said that's what she's talking about back there.
So, you can tell these students that when they get to their final classes, they're going to incorporate everything. And if they don't have it, it's really gonna stand out like a sore thumb.
Is they have to have the solid foundation that she's talking about from the beginning with the general ed courses and all. It's a foundation that they're gonna build upon to really finish building the house. She's an engineer, and so she understands about all of the components coming together, but
Right,
it has to do with, you have to first build a solid foundation, period.
right.
And then all the other linkages, they're linked together. Everything is linked together. Advising, student services, all of it is linked together. And so it should be institutionalized.
Thank you, yes. It should be, yay. And then Nancy King did the same thing. So, you just made the comment about connecting the academic courses. I'm taking, you mentioned midterm, so I'm not sure, I'm trying to think in nursing or whatever, in all nursing, those midterms or whatever course they have to take is going to apply to their core courses, because if they don't know those medical terms, they're not going to pass their program courses. So, but so many students, I always loved it in the classroom when a student would say to me, now I know why we learned this in this class, because we're applying it right now.
See, midterm is an elective, but we strongly recommend that students take that before they go into anatomy and physiology,
Physiology.
because then they're getting the basics.
Right, exactly. So, all right. So, how do we make our collaborations work? And we talked a little bit about this in the last session, but liaisons. Now, I know you only have 4 full-time advisors, but you have full-time faculty who work occasionally in the advising center, right? Well, right there you have your liaisons. Who can, because I think she said she has some from every division, not department, but every division, right? So that's where you have people going back and forth who are working on both sides of the house. It's nice if you have somebody from advising coming to academics and somebody from academics going to advising. But when you have such small numbers, if you've got those 12 people who are going back and forth, they're perfect to serve as those liaisons. Why are liaisons important? What kind of information are they going to be sharing back and forth?
Standardize everything. When we first started the advising center several years ago, they were advising my students incorrectly. And so I don't think I was the only person. So I did notice that they started having them come over. They had us redo our sheets. We had to go talk to certain people and tell them about our program. And now I don't see near the mistakes. It's really a very good, they get good quality advising.
So that communication is extremely important. We want our students to be advised appropriately. We want them to succeed. We don't want them to say, I was advised, yet I'm here for an extra semester because somebody blew it. You know, it's bad enough when the students try to advise themselves and that happens. We really don't want them to be saying that if they've been advised and they've gotten the wrong information. So we want those liaisons. I know, again, time-wise, this can be very difficult, but it can be a crucial component of that success. How do I know what's going on in advising? How do I know what their policies and procedures are? And how do they know, on the other hand, that I made some program changes? That now instead of Calc 1, we also require up to Calc 3 or whatever it might be. So, you know, and I know that you print those things and everything, but it really is nice if they can come and you go to the different meetings to learn those things. And when you're there, something might come to mind and you can get a question answered because you're right there. You can think of that question sitting at your desk, but there's nobody there to answer it right then. You may never get the answer. So attending those meetings could really be very helpful. Use an advising syllabus. Do you guys use an advising syllabus? An advising syllabus is an incredible piece, an incredible document that can really help students. Not only does it have information about the advisor, office hours, and all those crucial pieces, but it also gives the responsibility of the advisor, and in this case it can be the professional advisor, the faculty advisor, and the student, in addition to which it should list student learning outcomes. How many of you know about student learning outcomes from advising? From advising, though. Students, there should be a list of things we want students to learn from advising.
On our webpage, it talks about all kinds of things that students should know and where they should get that piece of information. And if you're taking an online class, and you know, we have all kinds of things on our website. But
what about putting it in one document?
I don't know that for a fact, but I'm sure they do have it. They send them from Building F over to us, so, or Building A to us, or wherever, depending on where we're
Right.
doing it.
But anyway, an advising syllabus is something that we should be using with our students. Not only does it do the things that I've listed there, but advising is like everything else and it should be assessed. So if you go to one of Karen's sessions, she's talking about the assessment of advising. And we look at those student learning outcomes. So what was a student supposed to learn? They should learn some very basic things like how to use the website, how to use the catalog, how to register online using Banner. You know, there are just a myriad of things that they should be learning from advising. They should be learning how to develop those critical thinking skills that we're saying that they don't have. So we list those all, and then when we do our assessment, we have a whole grid that we map out not only what they should learn, but when they should learn it, from whom they should learn it, and so on, and what are the tools, and then what percentage of students are we saying should have learned that in order to say we're successful? Now, obviously, we'd like to say 100% all the time, but that's probably not going to happen. So again, somebody talked about realistic expectations earlier. We have to be realistic as well as we look at advising.
We don't necessarily have the learning outcomes, but you can go on the academic page of our website and click on and find the different programs and information about the programs and who to see and what the program's about or what the course is about or whatever. I don't, depending on what it is exactly that you're looking for, whether or not every piece of that is at every single place, but a tremendous amount is, because we had to write those for our programs.
Right, but I'm not talking about program student learning outcomes. I'm talking
Well,
about
the
outcomes from
student-
advising.
Yeah, but if the student wants to be advised by somebody, they would just print that off, you know, and say, here it is, here's your webpage or whatever. And you can click on different places and it will tell you
Right.
who, or we even
Right.
have a place where you can click on the different people that teach the different courses and, you know, their qualifications, and you can click on them, and, you know, that we do have.
Well, that's nice. You don't see that on many web pages.
Because we don't have what's called an advising syllabus, but we do have a master syllabus. But what you're telling us now, that seems like an excellent idea.
Well,
But we don't have, we have master syllabus, but not an advising
Right.
syllabus.
We have where you can find the instructor for the particular courses or a particular division
Right.
or whatever.
Well, so many students don't even understand what advising is all about. And by reading this advising syllabus, they get the idea of how important it is. It's just really, to me, an essential document of advising.
They show up on advising day, they send, we have hundreds. See an advisor, hundreds.
Okay, so professional advisors and faculty advisors meeting together. You know, let's advise a student in a one-on-one session or group advising. You know, even for faculty, and I promote this a lot, we want to take scheduling out of advising because we want advising to be talking about those bigger concerns. But let's face it, scheduling, that's what a lot of people look at. So if we do group advising sessions, we can take care of that scheduling component, and then that frees up our office time to meet with students individually to talk about goals, expectations, concerns, issues they might have. And full-time and faculty advisors should work together in those sessions. The other thing is, and I said this before, talk about issues before you talk to the student to make sure that you're both on the same page. Because in my other group, I heard the comment, and in Jane's too, we're not giving them we're not giving them the same information. You know, they come and see you and they hear one thing, and they might come and hear you and hear another, not because you want to give them the wrong information, because that's what you know. And I'm not putting a blame on you, either one of them, I'm just pointing out. But so if we have a student, we know they have an issue, let's talk about it and make sure we're telling them the same thing. Use an early alert system, we've talked about that. That really shows the student that you care. You know, reach out, call the student, even if your institution doesn't have a university or a college-wide early alert system. There's not saying that you can't be that early alert system. Pick up the phone and call that student. Takes a few extra minutes maybe, but what the heck? You might save the student by doing that. You know, a student who drops, or a student who doesn't show up for a couple of weeks but doesn't call, thinks they should drop because something happened. They don't know. You know, we have these students who have no clue, many of them, about the whole education system. So go out, you know, take that extra step, go that extra mile, call those students. Form a cross-functional team. Let's all be, you know, let's have some representatives from all across campus talking about our student issues on a regular basis. A lot of campuses have those, a lot of campuses don't. But where they do, there's a lot more communication, a lot more sharing. Show support. I understand you don't have new student orientations yet, so to speak, but they're on their way. I know you have some, but they're not mandatory. Go to student-focused activities. I understand there's a staff-student basketball game coming up. Isn't that what they said this morning? Go to that. Show support for your students. Buy raffle tickets so that's going to make you come because if you're not there, you can't win. But show the students that you support them. If they have a bake sale, go buy something from the organization. Just show that you support them. And remember, it's not about you. It's about the students. So we really need to think about them. Jane gave some ideas in her session earlier about remembering names. And that's not always easy. But, if you have an appointment, look at your list to see, who that student is who's coming in next, so you call them by their name. And, try not to put the onus on you. Say, what would you like to talk about today? What would you like to discuss? What concerns do you have? So don't put it back on you.
I always talk about what I feel like my program requires that I meet individually with every student twice a semester. And that is quite a big burden on me, but I do it and I find out a lot of good information about the student and what's going on. But we talk, I'll sit down and I'll talk about what we need to talk about as a program, and then I always turn around, do you have something you need to talk about? Do we have anything that you and I need to discuss? And if they say no, then I'll say, well, then why don't you tell me about what's going on with you? Why is X, Y, Z?
One of the
And
things.
we'll find out all these things, we're living with baby daddy and he made her move out, and now then they're having to work till midnight or 1 o'clock, and and now that's why they can't hardly get there to class on time, and then their car broke down, and OMG,
I know.
It's just on and on.
Well, you want to make connections with students.
When I usually have about 30 at a time, both levels together, 30. So it's not too bad.
It's not too bad.
They're at a point in their life where many of them have so many obstacles, and that's why they are at this $10 to $15 an hour job that they're getting ready to get, because they have so many obstacles and they have not been told they can succeed.
Can you tell them how many you have? How many advisees you have?
Engineering program is really growing. Currently, fall we have over 250.
Woo!
And, it's going to be probably
Are you
continue growing.
accredited?
We are not accredited.
If you're accredited, they will make you see those students.
Yeah. So
Individually.
that's the reason I ask you that, because every student coming, we will spend half hour at the list.
At least.
At the list.
I've seen you spend a lot more than that.
Yeah, the reason is, this morning you're talking about, teacher talking about one course and program, I think as an advisor, we talk about whole entire curriculum.
Right.
So in that time, especially first time I met, the students really have no expectation what this program is about. So we make a little roadmap for them. Sometimes after this talk, I feel like it may be a little bit forceful for me to do that, but they really need that kind of knowledge
Yes,
to
they do.
know what to expect, and when they graduate, and when they transfer. And I see they got that content after they leave, because they realize there's a goal to pursue,
Exactly. The
right?
goal is
There's a little
important.
goal to pursue. So that's why I was asking, if I have 250 students, every single student come to us, and if we meet twice a semester, there's no way we can do it. And even
You wouldn't
now,
have time to teach.
yeah.
Right.
No.
Right. And that's why I really promote group advising sessions as well,
Notes, I like
because, and there are so many things you can do with group advising, and then that gives you time for those students who do need to meet with you.
The program got their study groups, they formed kind of by the time they get to be about
S-
the semester.
yeah.
You could advise that study group.
It's amazing.
I was also thinking about maybe we can make a video, like those generic things
I
about
was just thinking about that, you know,
Right.
at least the initial setup, we
Schedule
can make
it,
a video.
yeah.
Right.
So let them go through a
So they can
video.
keep going back to it.
That's
and
right.
rehearing
Right.
it.
Same thing you repeat.
Yeah. Lots of things you can do that take the burden off of you, but still let you build relationships with your students.
Yeah.
And that's ultimately what's the important thing, is that you build those relationships.
Some higher level critical thinking students though, they're in engineering,
yeah.
they're not.
We have a wide range. We have
There's a lot of them that
I was wanting to hear the answer to that myself.
How many engineering instructors do you have, faculty?
Do what?
How many faculty do you have in engineering?
She's it.
You're it?
Dr. Miles is full-time teaching calculus.
We have some adjuncts.
And
Okay.
we have one more adjunct who is teaching. Yeah, this could be.
So this is the
Wow.
first 2 years, is that what it is?
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
first 2 years.
Yeah.
Associate that transfers to Tech.
That's cool.
Yeah, that is. So yeah, just, things that you can do to make it easier on yourself, but still give the students the attention that they need. And that's what it all, I think Jane said, or somebody said this morning, let's not work harder. Let's just find different ways of doing things that we can still serve the students, build those relationships, and help them be successful. Any other comments or questions? I love this quote, if you've never seen it, from Henry Ford. So I think just, again, expounds the need for all of us to collaborate.
I found too that my students, they start forming bonds, and the ones that form bonds do the success.
Yep.
Almost always, I have a huge percentage that make it, that form the bond.
And I'll tell you,
Groups.
that group advising, they get in there that first time, and it's amazing how it's just like a magnet. You'll have this group over here, never met each other. Now all of a sudden you have 4 or 5 students and 4 or 5 students here. And all of a sudden you have these little study groups and you have these friendships. And when you have friendships within a program, that really helps with retention as well. The other thing I will push, and I should have said this in my other group and I will tomorrow, is peer advising. Develop a peer advising program because they can work wonders. And they can take the load off of you for the very basic questions. They form a bond with their fellow students. I know Jane uses them. They're used 4-year colleges, the universities, 2-year colleges. Everybody always said it doesn't work on a 2-year campus. How many students do you have graduate in 2 years? Not many. So they are there, they stay. And so that's another option, especially when you have large numbers of students. So, any other questions or comments? All right, thank you for your good discussion.